Friends, welcome to Biology Made Easy. Today, we'll discuss in this video how the different minerals are absorbed and translocated upwards. So let us start. So let us first discuss absorption of minerals. So usually the soil is the reservoir for all mineral elements, and these are required by the plants for their utilization. So how they are absorbed, how they enter into the cell. Usually the entry of these minerals into the cell takes place in two steps. So step 1. In step 1, let us first draw one diagram so that it will be very clear. This is the cell wall, and this is the cell membrane. So in the first step, what happens? The different minerals, they enter from this soil or extracellular from this soil or the outer surface to this extracellular surface, like this. Not into the cell. So in this case, in this step 1, it enters into the free space, or we can call it outer space or extracellular space. That means from the soil it enters into the space in between the cell wall and cell membrane, which we will call as a free space or outer space or extracellular space. Now this is a very passive process. That means it doesn't require energy, and this is very rapid process. Since there is nothing to obstruct it, so it takes place very rapidly, and usually this is apoplastic movement. Because here no cell, the cytoplasm or the protoplasm is not involved. Simply it enters to the cell wall, and it is regulated by certain ion channels, or we can tell transmembrane tunnels. So this happens in step 1. In step 2, what happens? In step 2, from this outer space it will enter into the cell. This is step 2, and this is step 1. So in step 2, what happens? In step 2, it enters into the inner space. Inner space means it enters into the cell, that is the cytoplasm. Then this is an active process, and since it is active process, it requires energy in the form of ATP. And while this is a rapid process, this is a slow process. This takes place by means of apoplast, but it takes by means of symplast, because it enters into the cytoplasm, and it in case of this step 1, it moves through ion channels, but here it moves through different types of the carriers, and the movement of these ions from the outer space into the cell is known as flux. So these are these two steps, step 1 and step 2. In step 1, it enters into the outer space, that means space between the wall and the membrane. It is completely passive and takes place very rapidly through the ion channels. Doesn't require any energy. While in step 2, it moves from this outer space to this cell, which is that is inner space, that is active process, that requires energy, and this movement is the symplastic. It requires, or it takes the help of some carriers, and the movement of ions into the cell is known as flux. Now in the next step that we will discuss what is the mechanism of this absorption. It moves in these two steps, but what is the mechanism? Mechanism of salt absorption. So again, in mechanism there are two processes. One is passive process and the other is active process. And also you know what are the major differences between passive process and active processes. Passive process. So passive process means it doesn't require any energy. Under the passive process, again there are several methods of passing of the ions. Now here number one is mass flow. Usually, when water is absorbed by the root hairs and it enters into the xylem vessel of the root, then it moves upward through the transpiration pool caused due to transpiration. And that is also known as mass flow. So, since these different types of minerals, they are present in water in dissolved form, along with water, they move by means of transpiration pool. That is known as mass flow. That means the main region is transpiration pool. Along with water, it moves from the soil into the xylem vessel. Now the second one is diffusion. Usually in the soil, the concentration of ions are less than that of the cell. So how then they will move by means of diffusion, because diffusion means it moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. Some of the ions, they may be in higher concentration in the soil than that of the root cells. So in that case, by the simple method of diffusion, they can move. The third one is contact exchange theory. Contact exchange theory. In this, let us take one example. Suppose this is the root. In root, the water usually breaks into hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions. The water splits into the hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions. Similarly, suppose this is one soil particle. This is one soil particle. Soil. And to this soil particle, suppose another ion, like suppose this potassium ion is attached. That means the oscillation volume of this hydrogen and that of the potassium ions, they overlap each other. And during this overlapping, there is every possibility that potassium will enter into the cell. Now, it will look like this. This is soil. Now this will be potassium and this will be hydrogen. That means exchange takes place. So this is known as contact exchange theory, because inside the soil there is not sufficient space so that the oscillation volume of one will be different from another. When they overlap, there is exchange of materials like this. Then the fourth step is known as carbonic acid theory. So here also what happens, the carbon dioxide which is liberated from the roots during respiration. Now the carbon dioxide is liberated. The carbon dioxide combines with water and it gives rise to bicarbonic acid. This bicarbonic acid, it dissociates into the carbonate ion and also H plus ion. Now, suppose this is the soil particle, and to this soil particle, suppose another ion, potassium is attached. So the oscillation, when the oscillation volume of hydrogen and potassium will overlap, there will be exchange. And during this exchange, what will happen? Usually, it may give rise to potassium bicarbonate, and this potassium bicarbonate will enter into the cell. That means there is exchange. This is known as contact exchange theory. Due to formation of carbonic acid, in the soil water, such exchange takes place. The fifth one is Dunham equilibrium. Dunham equilibrium. Dunham is the name of one scientist. In Dunham equilibrium, the concentration of cation inside the cell and concentration of anion inside the cell, I means inside, cation inside, anion inside, is equal to the concentration of cation outside the cell, O means outside, and the anion outside the cell. That means the product of the concentration of anion and cation inside the cell is equal to the product of cation and anion outside the cell. So when it happens, let us see. Suppose this is one cell membrane and this is inside the cell and this is outside. Suppose inside the cell there are 6 molecules of potassium A. This A means this is anion, and this anion is usually indiffusible. That means it cannot pass outside. It is indiffusible. And suppose outside there is 6 molecules of potassium bromate. So now this will dissociate into 6 potassium ions and 6 bromine ions. And this will dissociate into 6 potassium ions and 6 anions. But these 6 anions cannot go outside because they are indiffusible to the cell membrane. So in this case, what is happening? Let us see. Now, if this is the inside of the cell and this is the outside. Now suppose 2 molecules of bromine will enter inside. Suppose here 6 molecules of potassium are there, 6 molecules of anions are there which are indiffusible, and here also 6 molecules of potassium are there, 6 molecules of bromine are there. But out of these 6 molecules, suppose 4 bromine molecules will be there and 2 bromine molecules will move to this side. So usually what should happen? Since 2 molecules of these anions are moving inside, then 2 molecules of this anion should come outside, but that cannot come outside because it is indiffusible. So in that case, what will happen? Out of these 6 potassium ions, 2 molecules will go inside. That means instead of 6, now it will be 4. Now it will be 4. Because this is indiffusible, it cannot come outside. So now you see whether this equation is remaining same or not. Now see the concentration of cation anion inside. So here inside means now this is 6 potassium and 2. That means 8 potassium ions and the 2 bromine ions. 2 bromine ions. This is inside. Both are inside. And now there will be 4 potassium outside and also 4 bromine ions outside. That means this is 8 into 2, this is 4 into 4, equal. So this is known as a Dunham equilibrium when some indiffusible ions are present inside which cannot come outside. So to maintain the balance, here excess amount of the cations have to enter inside to maintain the balance. This is known as the Dunham equilibrium. So this is the about passive process. Now let us discuss the active process. So as you know, in the case of active process, energy is required, carriers are involved. Now, when both active and passive processes take place, in case of ions, what actually happens? Earlier we have discussed the absorption of water, and maximum amount of water, nearly 96% of water is absorbed passively, only very less amount actively. But in case of salt absorption, it is just reverse. Maximum amount of salts are absorbed actively, not passively. Why? Because of two reasons. So there are two reasons why they cannot come passively. Number one, the mineral elements are present in soil in charged forms. That means in anionic and cationic form. Number two, the concentration of minerals in soil is lesser than the cell. That means they are charged molecules plus their concentration outside the cell. That means in the cell solution is lesser than that of the cell. So these are the two reasons they cannot enter inside. That means they have to go actively with the help of carriers. Now the question is, they are absorbed actively. What is the proof? Now we have to give several evidences to prove that actually they are absorbed actively. Now number one is salt respiration. Now what is salt respiration? It has been seen that if the concentration of the salt solution is increased, the rate of respiration increases, or vice versa. The rate of respiration increases when the amount of salt is increased. That means there is a correlation between the salt absorption and that of the rate of respiration. That means a relation between respiration and salt absorption. And it has been observed, if a thin slice of a potato is shifted from normal water or tap water to salt solution, the rate of respiration increases quickly, because that means there is a correlation between the two. Number two, respiratory inhibitors. It has been observed that if some respiratory inhibitors are applied to the roots, then the absorption of minerals also decreases. So it's a clear-cut proof that there is a relation between the two, salt absorption and respiration. Then number three, availability of oxygen. There is a direct relationship between the rate of respiration. If the oxygen concentration is more available, that means if the rate of respiration is high, then the absorption of salt is also high. And another point is the Q10 is always 2 or 3. That means the rate of absorption depending upon this temperature is always 2 or 3. That is like any other biochemical reaction. Here also some enzymes are involved, some carriers are involved. That is why it is giving a quotient between 2 or 3. So these are the evidences to prove that actually some carriers are involved. But then let us see how it is actually taking place. The active absorption takes place with the help of some carriers, which are mostly the cytochromes. Suppose this is the cell inside, this is the cell outside, and this is the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane, this is outside, this is inside. And the different anions are present outside. And according to this method, only anions they move through the help of carriers, and cations automatically move passively to maintain their balance. So here what happens, the different types of cytochromes, that means they are arranged in the ferrous form, they are alternately arranged. That means suppose this is the ferric ion, this is the ferric ion, and this is the ferric ion, and this here it is ferrous, here it is ferrous, and here it is ferrous. So what usually happens? Usually this anion, it will be taken off. It will be taken off by this, and this is the anion, and it will when it will be converted to ferrous, it will give this anion to this one. Then again this ferric, it will give to this one, and it will return back to this one. That means now the anion will be here. The anion will be here. So when that means the electrons will move from this side due to dehydrogenase reactions. Inside the cell membrane, there are different dehydrogenase reactions, and during this dehydrogenase reaction, the electrons which are liberated, usually now the electron will be added here. The electron will be added here. When electron is added here, that means the reduction is taking place, and now the anion comes inside, and outside the electron is liberated. That means here oxidation is taking place. That means always in the inner side of the cell membrane, there is the reduction due to addition of electrons, and the anion is released. And on the outer surface of the cell membrane, the electron is released. That means oxidation takes place, and the anion is accepted. So by alternate oxidation reduction through this ferrous and ferric ions, usually it moves inside. Only the anions and the cations, they move simply to maintain the balance. They move passively. Only the anions move in this process. So this is what is known as active process. So now both by passively but mostly by actively, the ions are absorbed by the cell. Now how they will be translocated upwards, that we have to discuss. Now, usually the translocation of these minerals upwards, it takes place through the xylem, because xylem is the conducting element through which both water and minerals go upward. But what is the evidence that actually it moves through that? The upward movement, or we can call it as a translocation of minerals. So usually translocation of minerals takes place through the xylem. Now what is the evidence that actually they move through the xylem? Number one, there is a particular ratio is maintained between the translocation of minerals with that of the translocation of water. That means translocation of minerals and the translocation of water both correspond to each other. That means it clearly proves that the minerals also, they move along with water stream in the xylem. The second evidence we can take that that is radioactive isotope. Suppose we will give some radioactive isotope in the soil solution, and that will be absorbed in the xylem sap. So that is a clear-cut evidence that minerals are moving through the xylem. The third one is inside the if the xylem sap will be xylem sap analysis. If the xylem sap will be analyzed, here we will find different types of inorganic salts. Besides, some of the Minerals like phosphorus and sulfur, they are present in organic form. They are present in organic form. So where from this organic form comes, that means again it is clear-cut evidence that both xylem and phloem are interconnected. Suppose this is the xylem and this is the phloem, that means there are some interconnections. Some interconnections are there in between so that substances can move. That means from phloem it can come inside and water can go from the xylem to the phloem. Some interconnections are there. So this is all about the absorption of mineral salts and their translocation upwards. The rest of the things in this mineral chapter, that is nitrogen metabolism, that we'll discuss in the next video. Thank you very much for watching the video. God bless you. Have a good day.